Welcome back, everybody. First off, thank you so much for your viewing and feedback on the past two videos I did on Tool. We're going to do another Tool song today, because as far as I'm concerned, they have probably some of the most philosophically relevant lyrics that speak to, well, just contemplating being itself. So we're going to be going into their song Invincible. We're going to see what kind of lessons we can glean from their lyrics. Some things we can take with us, perhaps some things we can push to the side. So I'm looking forward to getting into this with you. So I think it's neat that I have the appropriate sweatshirt on for today. I actually called off work sick today, but luckily the magic of Excedrin knows no bounds, so kind of keeps us going here. And the cat is giving me some reprieve, and luckily this camera is a little bit, well, not as highly detail-oriented, or you would see orange cat here maybe all over my person. You can probably see it here anyway. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the song itself. For you Tool fans, this probably goes without saying. You probably have it memorized line by line, and then I'm going to break it down philosophically and see how this song exactly can appeal to us. I think that Tool, Maynard specifically, but maybe the band itself, because they always have a say in the lyrics, at least I would like to think so, sings these songs, and there might be a little bit of a mystical element to them, but there doesn't have to be. And I would challenge you, when you go to the links, I'm going to put the link to the song down below, go look at any of the comments in the section about Tool. Like, they are nothing but positive. It's really amazing. Like, some of the other bands you would go to, and any other YouTube video, eventually it turns into like a your mom thing at the end. But Tool's like a lot of people have gratitude for this band, whether you believe it or not. Hope is built into their lyrics. So kind of, at least in my opinion, just the undertoning is it just gets rid of the whole nihilism aspect, or at least it puts you into Maya, the Indian illusion, where you can just ignore the fact that you're going to die and just stay in that realm for a bit. But at the same time, they talk about the most serious issues that you could possibly think about, sort of. And then they'll have a song like Maynard's Dick, and like totally just off the wall sarcastic, because sometimes you have to have a little bit of levity in order to counteract the seriousness of life itself. I think that makes sense. Anyway, so we're going to start with these lyrics. We're going to go down, then we're going to dissect them bit by bit. So be patient with me here. Tool's Invincible. Long in tooth and soul, longing for another win. Lurch into the fray, weapon out and belly in. Warriors struggling to remain consequential. Bellow out loud, bold and proud of where I've been, but here I am. Beating chest and drums, beating tired bones again. Age-old battle mine, weapon out and belly in. Tales told of battles won, of things we've done. Caligula would grin. Beating tired bones, tripping through remember when. Once invincible, now the armor's wearing thin. Heavy shield down. Warriors struggling to remain relevant. Warriors struggling to remain consequential. Cry aloud, bold and proud, of where I've been, but here I am, where I am. Tears in my eyes, chasing Ponce de Leon's phantom soul. Filled with hope, I can taste mythical fountains. False hope, perhaps, but the truth never got in my way. Before now, feel the sting, feel time bearing down. So the concept of invincibility is something of an eternal, shell around it. And this song obviously is about the warrior theme and the glory of winning, the glory of defeating your enemies in battle, that kind of thing. From a martial arts perspective, I could totally get this. There's a thrill of winning, but that thrill is always in the immediate. It always takes your time window and puts it here, because we're thinking about the eternal battle we must fight. It's always way beyond the physical, if anything, because your body ages. So at the beginning of the song it goes, long in tooth and soul, longing for another win, lurch into the fray, weapon out and belly in. So you risk yourself. Long in tooth and soul, that's kind of like the youthful way of looking at a person. As you age, obviously your teeth grind down. This is in the book of Ecclesiastes. So your teeth kind of get shorter. It says the grinders get low. And long in soul as well. If your soul is a measurement of time, then the longer soul you have, that means the life you've lived is always short. And especially in a young man's eyes, the strength of youth is always to be feared. I think that's actually a Japanese proverb. Something like the experienced should always fear the strength of youth. Something like that. Warriors struggling to remain consequential. Well, that's the idea of invincibility. I think this ties in with the concept of you've probably heard this saying, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And this is the whole concept of wanting to get and keep your own invincibility. So if you can win via your strength with the sword, That's great, but you know your strength is going to run out. And as you get higher in prestige, the more people will be your enemies and the more people will shoot you down. So you actually have to be more of a political presence as you get higher in the realm of just winning everything. And you got to be careful who you trust and who you do not trust. So that's when you become the villain. You kind of have no choice. You have to be either very ruthless or you have to play a game that doesn't involve physical strength eventually. That's a different kind of overcoming. And I think C.S. Lewis put it pretty well when he was talking about power, the concept of power. Power only assumes power over other men. It rarely assumes like power over yourself or power just over nature in general. We can totally understand this when we look at the global scene as far as like war and the no nuclear weapons thing goes. That's pretty freaking scary. But what do nuclear weapons do except scare the crap out of your enemies? It's not like they're going to make you, drill a hole into the earth with nuclear weapons? Like, it's just not going to work like that. Bellow out loud, bold and proud of where I've been, but here I am. So it's almost like you take your past evidences, you bellow out loud, bold and proud of where I've been, but here I am. It's almost like you have to constantly, in the now, justify the strength you used to have when you were youthful. And that's like an impossible task. Everybody needs to rest once in a while. But sometimes you make an oath that you have to kind of go by, or if you're trying to verify your integrity as a person and saying, I'm a person who always wins. Well, that's pride. Pride itself can really make you do things you do not or should not do anyway. Maybe not want to do, but maybe you just want to do them, but you want to do them for the wrong reasons. Glory can only get you so far. Because the way glory is honored is you are successful in what you do, whatever venture it is that you are successful in. People will then maybe count on you to do whatever that function is. It could be, it could be combat, or it could be just being an operations officer or a sales representative, whatever that is. They will trust you because of your reputation to get things done, to continue on as such. But one of the problems with that is obviously, element of time, which is, pretty replete in this song. So what's the other option? If time is going to be your ultimate enemy, if our stories are finite, if you still want to honor victory itself, because you have to put it outside yourself. If the victory is only with your one self, that's very sociopathic. That's all about you and nobody else. The problem with that is we are not eternal. At least not in the, even if you want to go New Age reincarnation sense, the self that you and I give our names with, that's not eternal. And if you tell yourself that you are, besides fractaling out to like a heaven sense after death per the Judeo-Christian worldview, then you're lying to yourself, at least as far as I could tell. And when you start lying to yourself, you can call good things bad, bad things good. You really won when you know you actually didn't. One of the things I really like about fighting itself is, if you and somebody go at it, you lay them on the ground, it's very difficult for that person on the ground to say they won the fight. I suppose they could, but the reality kind of speaks otherwise. Beating chest and drums, beating tired bones again. Age-old battle mind, weapons out and belly in. That's pushing yourself way beyond where you think you should be. That's pushing your body as well. Now, there are stories of a lot of people up into their 70s and 80s who can have themselves in ridiculous, great fighting shape. Now, if they get in a brawl, unlike a 25-year-old, the healing process takes quite a bit longer. That's just the nature of life. Youth has this regenerative ability as it's still in its early cultivating form. As you go up and out, whatever aim you choose kind of makes you a little more fragile whenever you get your aim changed a bit. I think that's a good thing. That gives a lot of honor to wisdom itself. If you see a strong, competent, aged person, they've done something right for a very long time. Whereas if you're young, you could take quite a few bruises. You can afford to make a lot more mistakes, especially in the physical realm, and still continue on. It's like you have more forgiveness due to the innocence of your youth, something like that. Tales told, of battles won, of things we've done. Caligula would grin. In one sense, this song is calling to like the glories of the past. In the biblical literature, be the Edenic paradise. You want to aim for that in the future. Your Eden is back here, the paradise where everything kind of worked for you as long as you tilled the garden. You want to make that happen as well in the future. That's your baseline. If you have a good childhood, you want to recreate that as time goes on for your family. Now, in this sense, it's saying the glory of battle, we want that to go on forever. Sometimes battles get extremely brutal. Now, for Caligula, actually, I read up a little bit about him on History.com and in Wikipedia. Very interesting guy. They say he was It was a lot more brutal and weird than his nephew Nero, which is the guy that burnt down Rome and blamed it on the Christians. He did amazing things like requisitioned hundreds of Roman merchant ships to construct a 2-mile floating bridge across the Bay of Bulai so he could spend 2 days galloping back and forth across it. He led military campaigns to the Rhine and the English Channel, where he issued battles for theatrical displays, commanding his troops to plunder the sea by gathering shells in their helmets. His relationships with other individuals were tripping them as well. His biographer quotes his often repeated phrase, "Remember that I have the right to do anything to anybody." I know he gave his horse a house. It was said that he had incestuous relationships with his sisters. Like, this guy was a very, very weird dude, and it seems like he had no moral compass. And he treated himself as a god. Like, that's kind of how he looked at himself, which roughly was the role of Caesar, to be the people's god. It wasn't quite on par with like the pharaoh in Egypt. Like every other, at least Eastern mythology, dealt with the highest person in their hierarchy, the king or whatever, was always an avatar for the god. Whereas Pharaoh was God himself. That's why the plagues were so personal, because it was the pharaoh's responsibility to make the sun rise and set. So when the darkness happened in the plagues in the Exodus, that was extremely poignant toward Pharaoh's character. Same with every other one of those plagues. Every other one of those plagues dealt with the Pharaoh's responsibility to continue things as they are. But back to the song. Come on, sit down, kitty. Beating tired bones, tripping through to remember when. Once invincible, now the armor's wearing thin, heavy shield down. There comes a point where your body just will fail you. I mean, this is entropy in a nutshell, as far as we can tell in the scientific realm. Things break down. The miracle is that there's something rather than nothing, that there's life rather than no life at all. But the tripping through to remember when, sometimes your mind even starts to confuse you. I'm 41 at the moment. Some of the memories I hold dear, I know have been warped a little bit, and I'm glad I have points of references like a photo album from when I was like 8. There are things that when we go back so far, sometimes our memory, we'll gain the principle, but the absolute details of that event will just kind of start to get muddled unless we refresh them. Once invincible, now the armor's wearing thin. This is an interesting shout out to their song 46 and 2. See my shadow changing, stretching open over me, soften this old armor, hoping I could clear the way by stepping through my shadow. So that's kind of a neat play if you consider both the songs here. The armor that you had when you were in your youthful point of constantly regenerating, well, now the mistakes you make are kind of a more permanent level as you go on further in life. Whereas the introspective in 46 and 2, you're trying to soften your armor, so that way you can see what's within you. So this is more of an outgoing sense of dealing with life. You're constantly going out until the machine you use to go out and thwart your enemy or destroy the dragons or whatever you want to do with it gets so worn down you can't even do what you want to do anymore. Now, the things you're holding, the protection you've held, that shield, it just flops right to the ground and you lack the strength to wield it. Warriors struggling to remain relevant and consequential. Tears in my eyes chasing Ponce de Leon's phantom soul. So Ponce de Leon was the gentleman that was supposedly looked after or tried to find the fountain of youth. Now there's very little evidence that he actually was doing that. It's more of a myth. So I think that kind of appeals to that, the phantom soul of Ponce de Leon. And there's a lot of movies and cartoons that were made after this, searching after the famous Fountain of Youth. From what I understand, he mostly was like the governor or fighting over to be the governor of Puerto Rico, something like that at the time. But we're dealing with myth right now. This song, you're looking for the Fountain of Youth. If you continue to go after the victory that you felt when you were young, you continue to relive that. But unfortunately, as time goes on, as we age, we need more and more of something. It's kind of like an addiction, any kind of addiction, really. If you want to chase after the dragon, if you want to go after that high you had when you first had cocaine or drinking or something, whatever, it takes exponentially more to get you close to that feeling that you had. Filled with hope, I can taste mythical fountains. False hope, perhaps, but the truth never got in my way. I like that phrase, false hope, perhaps, but the truth never got in my way. So that's not examining your goal. Victory is only temporary. This is like any country that has their country, like Rome, founded on the idea that you constantly conquer. Well, two things are going to happen. One, you'll run out of countries to conquer, in which case you'll implode. That's per Nietzsche. Well, you always need a slave master race to kind of bounce off each other. Or two, you'll eventually get defeated. You'll spread yourself so thin because you're trying to take over everything that eventually the outer structure of yourself will break, or you'll get destroyed from within because you're spreading your civilians things too thin as well. And that's the same with the individual and the warrior sense. You can't fight everybody. You can try to be John Wick, but John Wick gets pretty beat up, dude, and he needs rest and friends. You can't be invincible per se forever. And that's ultimately what the song gets to. But the truth never got in my way before now. Feel the sting, feel time bearing down. Well, let's examine what would cause you to fight or do battle or want to. If you're pursuing victory, it's either you want something or it's, well, direct retribution. If somebody hurts you, you kind of want to snap back at them. If anything, because you want to stop the pain, right? That's like an animal biting you because you stepped on their foot. I mean, I have this little cat down here. It's kind of how that works. If I'm not paying attention, I might step on him, and then I deserve a bite on my foot because I have a little cat and I should be aware of him. Something like that. But if your whole goal in life is to seek that immediate, that victory, that exhilaration, because there is something about overcoming adversity to get your goal. That's noble. It depends on the adversity, right? Because if you're just, trying to steal something, well, a person guarding their treasure might be adversity per se. But does that contribute to life itself? Does that contribute to being existing? Does that contribute to a culture that can deal with itself? A culture that can continue to flourish if people are allowed to steal from each other? There was a guy named Jim Ehrman who, he pointed out a study to me. Unfortunately, I don't have that off the top of my head, but and you can look at this too. There's two cultural standards that are everywhere, that have always existed. Two things that are present in every law and every country, every place ever. And that's, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not commit adultery. Stuff is sacred, and whoever your mate is, that is also sacred. Interestingly enough, murder is not on there. And I think I said this before, but that was one of the big things with the Germanic tribes when the Christians were starting to convert them, or trying to convert them. They're like, what do you mean I can't kill my neighbor? That's what I do. They had a lot of issue with that, so there was murder built into some of the laws, but when it came to marriage and theft, those were things in every culture. In order for cultures to exist and thrive, you can't have that. Those things need to be kind of like contained, and that's cultural law. And even you and me, we were under the umbrella of this cultural law. And we kind of agreed to it. If we didn't agree to it, well, we wouldn't be able to, even have electricity. Because you have to have a certain trust that your fellow man is going to do what he says he's going to do, if anything, for the currency. And currency is just a promise. That's what money is. It's a promise of labor. We have a great luxury if you can hear this video. We have become so great at specializing specific tasks that I can just do one thing and do it very well and get everything else at the same time. That's kind of neat. And there is a place to be specialized in violence and being a perfecter of violence, being invincible in the victory sense. You need that, especially when it comes to protecting what you like and protecting what you want, and protecting what's fragile, what's precious, what's good, what's worthy of protecting. As far as I can tell, it's life itself, and being as such. And part of our idea here, at least on this channel, is we are pursuing the philosophy that's needed in order for life itself to continue and to flourish, both with the individual and in every culture everywhere. And in order for that to be, in order for us to look for that, we have to look for something that's beyond time. That's timeless per se. Rather, it applies at every sense of growth in the individual and in the culture. I think this song actually does a great job of pointing that out. I listen to this song, this album specifically, when I do my katas. Katas are practice forms of fighting, basically, in the martial arts system. As I want to achieve victory, I know my time and my muscles are fleeting, so the way that I can pass that on properly in a proper sense is by teaching it to somebody else. And as I teach that, I also teach the same respect and values that kept me going in my culture to them as well, in a serious manner. And I think that's very much a masculine role. That was yesterday I put a video out there that what is the most dangerous thing in the Garden of Eden? Dangerous thing in the garden, and that's not doing anything. That's Adam being silent. Part of the masculine role is to actually be on the edge of chaos versus order, and to understand which one's which, and to go toward the order or the goodness or the purpose that's established even before we're even here, that we could see before and after us, that's necessary for life to continue in a certain direction. But if you don't do anything, if you see the chaos coming into to the garden, and you do nothing to stop it, and nothing with your talents, and not acknowledging what role you might have to make things better, not acknowledging the passion in you that should be there, even if it's not there, maybe you need someone else to hold on to. Maybe you need someone else to follow if you're not the one who's going to be calling out chaos or evil for what it is. So that's something to think about. I really enjoyed this Tool song, and hopefully I'll be able to do a few more here on Music Monday, because this very much does appeal to the whole hero's journey, the story that pulls to you and me as we continue on with life. There's something about everything we watch and everything we hear. There's an element that's like etched into it and to us that we kind of have to have a relationship to. So if you want to see how much further this relationship could possibly go, click on this video over here that YouTube recommends. See if we can explore this area together.